Mays, who's right there, wave Jeff, and Alex White should have already been here, but he's not because of plane and weather and whatever else is causing plane problems. So, okay, we're going to start off. And when I was doing this, it was kind of funny from last year. I started looking at all that's changed. This has been a year where we worked on a lot of things that were community. There was a lot of technical improvements, but a lot of things just end up looking like community-oriented things that have improved. The first thing is for perfect timing, today, a few hours ago, the application period for students to participate in the Google Summer of Code actually opened about 3 hours ago. We also, along with a lot of this going on, we have one of multiple new support sites for the project. There is a site, projects.rtems.org, which, like, if somebody comes in and wants to do something as a project, as a volunteer, a student project, whatever, a lot of those are listed at projects.rtems.org, and we try to put the larger projects there. And I will repeat this every time I get a chance. We actually do need, if you've ever used RTEMS, you are way ahead of these students, and we really, really could use the help. Thanks to some changes we've had at least 3 times more students already do the Hello World vetting project. And we're actually in a position where we'll have to turn some down because we won't have mentors. And so, anybody, and now it's not just for students, it's for anybody who can contribute. So last year's GSOC was pretty successful, and we've got all this added. One of the ones that's pretty cool is that the 64-bit PC support is finally starting to come along. It's funny, but it's just a target that nobody in the RTEMS community really uses much. There's a lot of users on 64-bit ARMs and Sparks and real industrial hardware, but somehow the PC doesn't get much love. One of the things I'd wanted for a long time was that there is a stack checker which can print error messages, and I always wondered why nobody had ever suggested that it was possible to replace the default handler. And there is a Beagle V-Fire BSP, which is based on the Polar Fire, so it's in the whole family of the microchip things. One of the other things that was the long overdue RTEMS 6.1 was released in January, and we do tease ourselves that our releases are measured in major life moments: how many children were born, how many degrees were earned, grandchildren, how many parents passed away, unfortunately, those type of life events. This is a big type of a big release. With the build system changed to WAF, so it's a lot faster. There were 2 new ports, the 64-bit ARM and the microblaze. There were 49 new BSPs, and at the time of the release, there were 18 processor architectures, and the BSPs were in almost 100 families and 222. There are 6 architectures which have symmetric multiprocessing support, and there are fielded systems that we know of up to 24 cores. One of the big changes over the past few years, you have a choice of network stack. You can use the legacy, which at the moment, that's the GRETH is still only supported in the legacy. The lightweight IP stack or the libbsd. And one of the other nice things about libbsd that's come along in the past year is there are updates to get it to FreeBSD 14 or 15. Part of some of the ESA supported work was that GCOV, the GNU coverage reporting, is supported for embedded targets. And one of the cool things, which is not in this release, is that the newest releases of GCC, the GCOV actually includes MCDC analysis, which I haven't had much chance to play with. So, and the student project for Python Pretty Printers is now included. So, at least 10 years ago, Apple started complaining about the V3 of the GPL, and they quit. They were very adamant that they would never use GPL software again, and that put a bad taste in many corporate lawyers and for the GPL. And even though RTEMS has always had a permissive license, we actually just got tired of explaining it to lawyers who just saw GPL, big red flag, and we're like, I don't want to talk to lawyers. I just want to give away software and let people use it. So we are relicensing in 2-clause BSD, and we have primarily me, has spent a lot of effort tracking down people who've submitted code. And if you can just look, you can see how much has already been relicensed. I actually, in looking, after making this slide, there are now entire ports where you actually would not touch code under the old license. But unfortunately, there are also people who are very difficult to find. But I think we're almost at the point where we're clean, except for some old BSPs. But if you have ever submitted code and you have not given permission, or you know somebody, please give us permission. I'm tired of tracking down broken down email addresses and finding people's kids on Facebook and then asking them for permission, and then realizing I wasn't talking to their wife, I was talking to a kid with the same name. So one of the other things that happened about the time of the Flight Software Workshop last year is we moved. You got to remember, RTEMS, the original development started in 1989. That's 35 years ago for anybody who's keeping track. And our source code history publicly goes back to May of 1995, which is now 30 years. So we switched from mailing list-based development to our own enterprise edition of GitLab. And at gitlab.rtems.org, the docs.rtems.org stayed. I think the docs has had a new theme. Lists is unchanged, but the mailing lists are not near as active. And there's the new projects. What's left from the old wiki is slowly being converted into real documentation. Wikis are hard to version control and release with version, so we've moved it. The activity moved to GitLab very quickly. And one of the other important things is everything now that's got an account at rtems.org is two-factor authentication. So I don't know if it's easy to point. At the far tail of the development ML graph up here, you notice this, it drops like a rock. It's just like lemmings went over the cliff. And if you look at the timeline, you notice in the second graph to the right, this is a GitLab. We imported all of the open issues, or not open, the entire history of issues across the entire history of RTEMS back through Bugzilla and Gnats before that. So, and what you see in this graph is we imported them, then we reassigned them based on, like, say it was networking, then it got assigned to the networking repo, since GitLab allows you to organize it. And if you note, the traffic to the development mailing list, where all activity happened before, has completely dropped off. And it's slowly, with issues and merge requests, has come across, and you can see that it's just steadily grown. There's some activity. I think we're on the order of usually 10 to 15 merge requests, I think is the way it goes. It's usually pretty quick. And you can see over here to the right, this bottom one shows I think the number of pipelines, and you can tell when we first got our first bit of CI that things would fail. That's when things started to fail. Before that, every time you ran the invisible pipeline, it passed, and then it started to occasionally fail. Right now, we don't check a whole lot on the pipeline. That's another thing that needs more love and attention. So one of the things that's been really surprising, because I actually like doing the slides with this project activity, there are now more users on GitLab with two-factor authentication than there ever were on any of the mailing lists, which I think is pretty impressive, because the two-factor authentication is a pretty high bar on an open account. We also used and spent a lot of time arguing about merge requests and who needs to approve them. Every merge request requires at least two people's approval based on the area that it's done. We use a GitLab feature called code owners. And sometimes that unfortunately gets to the point where you have to hunt down the last person because they're on holiday or something. But there are GitLab code owners defined for all of RTEMS. We have CI that's still very minimal. We do commit message to make sure something's not really stupid. We actually turned on a spell checker, which is pretty amazing how many words are still misspelled in comments. We do not allow merge commit messages. And one of the things which Adair Bloom has been working on for a couple of years is changes to the LLVM code formatting tool and a style that matches the RTEMS style. And he's got, I think, one patch left with LLVM upstream, and then we hopefully will start converting the code formatting. So the GitLab transition was funded by OAR, Contemporary Software in Australia, and Embedded Brains in Germany. Amar Takar did all the work. He has been our volunteer sysadmin for the past decade, and he usually just doesn't get any paid work, so giving him some money to do the transitions was a good thing. The other thing where we moved out of the 70s or 80s or 90s or whatever you want to think, we started using Discord, which actually, I already actually had to get Discord account for Pokemon Go because that's how the local group gets together. So I wasn't that out of the loop on this one, but we have a server dedicated to RTEMS. There are multiple channels for specific topics. There's one for GSOC. There's one every time something's committed or an issue is filed, there's a channel for that. There's networking docs. What's really, really surprising though is Amar took us through the trouble to enable all of the safe community features and moderation, and I think two-factor authentication on accounts. We now have, we crossed 1,000 users, which meant we got to be added to the Discord publicly discoverable server database. And which is a pretty big, it was a big deal. I'm really surprised we actually got that far. It was like, oh, we did it. Oh, okay. And there is an open meeting every Thursday at 5 o'clock Central where you can come in and ask questions or just find out what's going on or contribute. Some weeks it's just a burn down session for merge requests, like just tell people that they hadn't paid enough attention and come on and do it. Unfortunately, sounding very close to Discord is Discourse. This is a like a bulletin board forum type, and what we quickly learned is that Discord is completely chaotic in how things get posted and organized and search back for history, and we needed a way for conversations to last longer and be searchable and discoverable. So we have this has only been up maybe a month. There are not that many users, and we're currently trying to make sure we are very responsive on it so it gets more users. So it also, I did notice, Geisler actually has an instance of this. I noticed when I was looking for something last week, and FreeBSD is a big user. So we're trying to get people who ask questions that somebody's going to ask again to bring them over here so the discussion won't go on. Because I mean, I'm like, with Google Summer Code, we get very tired of helping install the tools, take you through Hello World over and over again. So after branching 6, we always try to give a wish list. So this time, for the first time, I've actually identified what I think are reasonable things to expect and things that are desirable that we actually have absolutely zero control. People always show up with new BSPs, ports, other things that we have no control over the timing of. So there was a number of ports, I think 6 architectures and 20 or 30 board support packages that were identified as obsolete. They've already all been removed. And surprisingly, that took out all of, to make anybody feel old in here, all of the old 680X0 boards, like the 68040s, they're now all gone. We can't find any users of them. So we're left with just the Coldfire part of that family. Even more has been relicensed. I'm hopefully that this will be to the point where it'll be possible to run a software bill of materials program on it here in the near future. And then we'll get the code formatting enforced. I really, really, really want the HPSC BSP to get merged. It's still inside Microchip, and it needs to be submitted. We have seen it enough to know that it's a large submission that will be hard, if not impossible, to properly review with volunteer effort. So we're kind of politely pleading for whoever's planning on using HPSC plus RTEMS. When Microchip decides to submit it, we would like to be sponsored to review it and possibly add missing drivers and make sure it goes into the ecosystem well. Because at the moment, we just have got no, it's just going to be a large bit of review. And so we would like to get some improvements to the Raspberry Pi support. This is something anybody who's just needs something to do could hopefully do. One of the things that's happened, I said we have 3 network stacks now. We also realized that we had a set of network services that would run against any of the network stacks. So one of the things that's happened that doesn't get mentioned is we've had our network time synchronization code improved to the point it's used for nanosecond granularity on a number of science instruments. And that type of code can be used generally independent of the network stack. So that's what we're trying to get to the point. The ESP32C series is RISC-V based, and it would be nice to have a board. And for Jan Summer, we really would like the Rust support to mature more and get to the point where it's actually something we'd tell people to employment for real use. And GCC's Rust support is coming along, hopefully quickly. One of the things you probably never see, because the results of this get posted to a special mailing list that is public. OAR and anybody else can do this too. We do we've got a farm that builds RTEMS anytime there's a change, and we build the tools, run the tests on simulators, and it will take up to, say, 20 hours on an 8-core Xeon to actually build everything and do a full test sweep. And this lets us see, for example, like, well, I mean, I think the CentOS 7 has been decommissioned, but it lets us know that everything on platforms that nobody's necessarily actively reporting on, and it keeps it up. So one of the other nice things that's happened, there is now something called a deployment framework, which allows you essentially to build your own RTEMS distribution as a binary for like in-house use. So if you want to build your own tar files to distribute to users inside your organization, or RPMs, it does not build Debian packages yet, but it allows you to basically do your own software stack. So you can build this BSP, I mean, the tools for Architecture X with this BSP, with this network stack, with these add-on packages. I think they're using it at one place to build Dockers. So switching from the free side to the not free side, OAR has been supporting RTEMS a long time. The first version of the RTEMS class I taught was actually on view graphs, so that tells you how long ago that's been going. We do things for BSPs, ports, new drivers. We help people do application design, standards conformance work. We do guidance. We will help fix specific issues or port features. We have ported file systems, libraries. We'll do anything anybody needs. And we also have been very active in the FACE technical standard, and we do similar services for that if anybody's into the modular open architecture. I heard SOSO earlier, which is a spinoff of the FACE consortium. So what we've done as we've gone on is, we know people need consulting help sometimes with RTEMS, and we're happy to do it in custom development. From the FACE, more from the FACE side, we heard there was a need, and now the space community is doing things like this. The FACE technical standard includes a configuration requirements for the features to run POSIX applications and ARINC applications side by side. And we partnered with DDCI to do DIOS RTEMS, and this is now available on 5 architectures, a combination of 32 and 64 bits. And we have been through conformance to the technical standard. From in a different direction, we've listened to other users who would like to not use a command line and would like to have more of an IDE. So this is I guess, a soft announcement, soft opening of Dev Suite, because we want to hear what other people want to think about it. It is an RTEMS-centric Eclipse-based IDE. It is currently based on RTEMS 5 because 6 came out too late in our cycle to switch it over. And it includes everything we think is useful for various targets. And the first 2 targets in the initial version are the Spark and the ARM. When we go to RTEMS 6 in the next iteration, those will stay. They'll also get the 64-bit ARM and the RISC-V. One of the things that's integrated, and other than it's the normal C, C++ IDE with the normal, what I think are normal plugins. One of the cool things, though, is that like the graph here, this is a quad-core demo application using the Trace Compass and using the what's called the RTEMS capture engine to trace activity on the target hardware, and then the trace is offloaded from the target and analyzed this way. So, I mean, Alex will be here tomorrow, hopefully, to do demos. Jeff can talk to it more than I can, but it's Eclipse. I unfortunately will admit to being old enough where I still think having VI in 2 windows side by side is useful. So getting me into a GUI like that I've got to be a challenge. So one of the things I'm kind of, in a way, I'm really proud that the project as a community has been so active and that we've embraced change, because it's been a long time. GitLab has changed things a lot, and the GitLab was funded by the 3 companies that do commercial work, and that's how that kind of stuff happens. So Jeff's here, Alex will be here tomorrow. I'll be around to take any questions. And that probably means I'm down to 3. 2, or whatever that's been. 3. So questions? Oh.
Steps in the day. It wasn't.
Hey Joel, it's Pablo here. You didn't mention 2 features that are, to me, very important. The symmetric multiprocessor and the POSIX plugin. It is available for, will be available for RTEMS 7. It's handled by Europe. How is this managed?
Okay, the qualified version. So what you're at? Okay, the symmetric multi. So they have the European Space Agency, other than the CI to produce their qualification package. Everything has been submitted upstream, and there's been work to try to integrate the requirements and the automatic generation of some of the header files and documentation into the open source project. So it's there. It's been there a couple of years, and we're trying to digest all of that was submitted, because it's another case where something that was very nice and very expensive was thrown at the community for volunteers to digest. And so we're slowly digesting it as volunteers, but it's being done. The symmetric multiprocessing, that list is 6 architectures: Spark, 32-bit ARM, 64-bit ARM, PowerPC, 32-bit x86, and 64-bit x86, and RISC-V. I don't know that anybody cares about SMP on anything else. So that it's mature, and I don't expect to see any more ports for it until we get another architecture. I am personally out of architectures to port to. So the Microblaze was the last on my wish list, and that was it. So and I don't see any new processor architectures coming up soon.
Yeah, we have a question online by Richard Landau. Any plans to add memory isolated processes to RTEMS?
Oh, more processes. No, nobody has stepped forward to put any work into doing processes. Should it? You mentioned POSIX. I'm sorry. There's no work planned on this, but it made me think you mentioned POSIX. At this point, the POSIX, the FACE technical standard defines POSIX profiles for real-time embedded systems based on usage patterns from avionics. And RTEMS there's 4 profiles. RTEMS has already, with DIOS, been through conformance for the 3 smaller ones. And I think at this point, we have all the POSIX that's needed for what's called the general purpose profile. And that's just got to be double checked. And then we'll have to decide if we want to go through the conformance process for FACE technical standard general purpose profile. But I think last time we checked, we were down to 1 method, and it's been implemented. So now it's a matter of just double checking if our tracking was right.
I think that's it. Thank you, Joel.
Just, if you want something, ask.